Autism might be a modern diagnosis, but autistic people, they've been among us for ages. Around 3000 BC in ancient Egypt, children who didn't speak and avoided eye contact were thought to be silent servants of the gods. They were seen as mystical but excluded, different but not recognized. In ancient Greece, things were much stricter. Aristotle declared these children uneducable slaves. Silence was seen not as wisdom but as a flaw. In Rome, they were thought to be a punishment from the gods. They were called a burden on society and abandoned. They were there, they were alone, and autism was a loneliness that hadn't yet been named. Time moved on, but understanding was still far away. A child who remained silent was sometimes seen as blessed, sometimes as unlucky. In the Siberian steppes, children who avoided eye contact were believed to have a shaman spirit within them. They weren't of this world, they were in touch with the spirit realm. Some tribes protected and listened to them, because their insights were different. But in the north, in Scandinavian myths, if a child changed, if they became withdrawn, it was thought that fairies had taken them. The silent body left behind was now a changeling, a fake child. Mythologies tried to understand the silence, but when they couldn't, they covered it with fairy tales. Autism was still there, but it was still unseen. The Middle Ages, an era where silence was no longer a secret, but a crime. If a child didn't speak and kept to themselves, people thought the devil was talking to them. These children were declared possessed, victims of demons, or toys of the devil. Prayers were read in churches. Children were tied up and whipped to cast out spirits. Families felt helpless. Because this silence was not just misunderstood, it was also dangerous. The book Malleus Maleficarum, The Witch's Hammer, written in 1487, claimed that children who didn't speak or looked strange were born from witch mothers. Silent children weren't prayed for. They were tried to be silenced with prayer. Autism was there, but it was being silenced. After centuries of darkness, people finally started to listen to the silence. In 1799, a wild boy was found in the forests of France. He didn't speak, he didn't make eye contact, he didn't react, but he had a deep connection with nature. He was named Victor. French doctor Jean-Marc Gaspard Itard decided to teach him. Was he just smart, or could he be taught? Victor learned to sit, to look, some words. But his inner world always stayed within himself. Today, his story is seen as the first written picture of autism. The Enlightenment wasn't just a fancy idea. For the first time, a child's silence was questioned. And in that silence, humanity, for the first time, noticed another world. Early 20th century, psychiatry was a new science, and the human mind was still a mystery. In 1911, Swiss psychiatrist Eugen Bleuler came up with a new word, autismus, while studying schizophrenia. For Bleuler, autismus meant someone withdrawing into their own world, moving away from reality. But this definition didn't quite match what we understand autism to be today. In 1943, in America, Dr. Leo Kanner, an immigrant from Austria, studied a group of children who hadn't been described before. These children didn't talk, made repetitive movements, and avoided social interaction. Kanner called this condition early infantile autism, and separated autism from schizophrenia. And so, for the very first time, autism became its own recognized condition in medical books. But he was wrong too. By observing the intellectual makeup of families, he eventually linked children's behavior to cold mothers. This is how the term refrigerator mother was born. The blame was placed not on the child, but on the mothers. At the same time, in Vienna, under the shadow of Nazi Germany, another doctor was describing different children. Dr. Hans Asperger. His children spoke fluently but couldn't communicate meaningfully. They couldn't make eye contact, but could have detailed historical knowledge. They couldn't make friends, but could look at train schedules for hours. Asperger called this condition autistic psychopathy. He wanted to integrate these children into society through special education. However, Nazi medicine had declared these children useless. These two men, Kanner and Asperger, on different continents under different ideas, they listened to the same silence. And for the first time in history, autism was named. 1980. Autism was now an official medical diagnosis. The American Psychiatric Association's diagnostic book, DSM-3, defined autism for the first time as infantile autism. Autism had stepped out of schizophrenia's shadow, but it was just the beginning of the journey. According to the diagnostic criteria, symptoms had to start before 36 months. Diagnosis was based on a triangle of social communication, language development, and behaviors. In 1987, DSM-3R was published. With this version, the definition of autism was broadened, but as the diagnosis broadened, so did the confusion, because now some children could speak but couldn't connect with others, and some had high intelligence but showed intense repetitive behaviors. To understand these differences, new diagnoses came about: Asperger syndrome, Rett syndrome, childhood disintegrative disorder, and the most complex PDD-NOS, or pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. Children born in the same city, in the same year, could go to different clinics and come back with completely different diagnoses. With the release of DSM-4 in 1994, these subtypes became official. The picture was finally becoming clear. Autism wasn't just one diagnosis, it was a spectrum. These children didn't have to be alike. It was their differences, not their similarities, that brought them together. The spectrum made room for every unique story. It reminded us that no two journeys are ever the same. In 2013, the definitions changed. The American Psychiatric Association combined different types of autism under one umbrella with the DSM-5. Now there was one big umbrella: autism spectrum disorder, and since then, we know that autism isn't a straight line, it's a circle. Every person stands in a different spot on that circle. Some are quiet, some talk a lot but can't be understood. Some don't hear sounds at all, while others find even the smallest sound painful. Autism isn't about being the same, it's about being different. Every person is unique. This change didn't just happen in textbooks. Today, autistic people are speaking for themselves. We are not sick. We have minds that work differently. And so, the neurodiversity movement was born. Autism is no longer seen as a flaw to be fixed, but as a difference to be understood. Labels might still be around, but some walls have come down, because now someone can bravely say, "Don't fix me, just listen." It was never given a name. It was cursed. It was linked to magic. It was silenced with prayers. It was shaped by education. It was diagnosed. And finally someone dared to ask, what if it's just different? Autism is not a disease, it's not a choice, it's not a punishment, and it's not a gift. It is a human being, a silent, colorful, untouched, deep world, and it's still not fully understood. Throughout history, we remained silent, yet those children were always speaking, but we never knew which language to listen to. Now, silence itself is speaking to us, and it says, please stop trying to fix me, stand with me, see me,